I had a few comments in the last deep shop cabinet build video about the handles, so I thought I would go into a bit more detail on that here. I'm also going to show how to make another personal favorite of mine, and that's the handles I have on my sanding table here. These are just made from pine and were glued on with pin nails just to hold them in place until the glue dried. And they have been on here for 5 years and have not come off. I generally make these handles out of softwood, just spruce, 2x4s, 2x6, whatever I have. Here I have a piece of 2x2 that I cut for some other reason. And what I do first is figure out the flattest side by laying it on a table saw and moving it around. And I'm looking for the least amount of rocking, and it looks like that one. So put that one down. Then I'm going to set the fence to just trim a little bit off this side, just to clean it up and straighten it up. I don't have a joiner, but if you have a joiner, always nice to be able to do that on that. Now what that gives me is a 90-degree angle here, nice and clean. What I'll do again is flip it over, except this time I'll move the fence over to 1 3/8. Now I'm going to move the fence to the other side of the blade, because my blade tips this way to the right. If your saw tips to the left, then you would leave it on the same side. The point of this is that you want to be making your cut so that your piece is not trapped between the blade and the fence, because that can cause kickback. So I'm going to set my saw to 1 1/4 inches away from the blade, tip it to 10 degrees, and I'm going to make another cut. I brought the blade back to 90 degrees. I moved my fence back to the other side of the blade. I set it to 3/4 of an inch and locked it in place. Now I need to lower the blade so that it's cutting about, I don't know, 7/8 of an inch in. It depends upon how thick you want the grip part to be. I usually aim for around 1/2 inch. Depends upon the size of the cabinet. The bigger the cabinet, the bigger this pull should be, up to a certain limit. I made slightly different ones on my heated cabinet over here, and the ones that I'm making today are very similar to the ones I made for my wooden blinds, except smaller. So now that I've got the height set, I can make that first cut. Now I need to reset the saw to 1/2 inch away from the blade, lower it down again so that I can make this cut. So that's the completed handle. What I normally do now is I trim off the end at around 22 degrees on the miter saw. I also take the hand plane, make it a little bit smoother, easier to grip. And then it's just a matter of fastening it to the cabinet. I normally just glue it and drive nails from behind, but you can also drive screws and use no glue. For the next one, I printed the picture from my website. This has the dimensions on it. It's not really meant to be a template that you can go from. You really want to go by the dimensions, because this would make a decent handle. It'd be a little bit big, certainly bigger than the ones that I have there. So I'm going to start with a piece of pine. You can use any wood for this, of course, but I'm going to use pine. And the thickness, or the amount that the handle sticks out, is 1 1/4. So I'm going to set my saw to that, which I've already done, and I'm going to rip it. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to lay out the curves on here. I'm going to use my compact compass for that. And the first one that I'm interested in is this handle cutout here, which is a 2 3/4 inch radius. Now the easiest way to set that and to mark it on something that's not actually big enough for 2 3/4 is to mark it on another piece of wood like this. I'm going to mark the center of my handle. This handle is 6 inches long. I'll mark that. Then I'll mark 3 inches for the center. I'll take my stick, line that up perpendicular to the handle, and set my compass to the 2 3/4. Now that I've got my compass set, I'm going to move it up so that it's 3/8 of an inch away from the outside of the handle. Push the pin in, then draw the arc. Then I can set my compact compass to the 3 1/8 inch radius and use the same pivot point to draw the outside of the handle. So that's a neat trick to be able to mark a radius on something if it's not wide enough to support the compass. And it would be perfect for, making them exactly like this. But in the beginning, I didn't use that method. I just used convenient sized round things to draw the arcs, and I find that's easier. So I'm going to finish it up doing it that way. So here I've got the typical paint can size to finish the outside curve on the handle. But now that I've got the curves laid out, I can cut it to length on the miter saw. And then bring it to the bandsaw and finish cutting it out. Then I can bring it to the spindle sander and smooth out the rough bandsaw cuts. A little bit of hand sanding afterwards finishes cleaning it up. And there you have it, two kinds of pulls that I really like that I've used a lot here in the workshop, especially this one. This one's really good for going all the way across a drawer so that you can grab it anywhere and pull it out. This one's a little bit, fancier looking. It is still, very rugged and tough though. And as demonstrated with the sanding table over here, is long lasting even though it is just made from pine. Well, not unexpectedly, in the video where I repaired the fan, I got a lot of comments saying that I should make a knob for it because the knob's broken and the handle's broken. I should make a handle as well. So I'm going to do that. Okay, the first thing I'm going to make is the knob. Just going to use a piece of 1/2 inch plywood. This is Baltic birch plywood. This is the wheel that was on my router table, the old one, before I moved it down to my basement to give me more space in here. I measured the shaft on the switch, and the drill bit size is 15/64 for a snug fit. Then I can cut it out roughly on the bandsaw. First thing I gotta cut off the wheel here. I tried to undo that nut, but the thing is turning around. Now that I've got it roughly cut out to the shape, I'm going to use my disc sander to smooth it up. I'm happy with how smooth the knob is. It should be a nice snug fit on that shaft, and it is. And I'm going to push it on there, and then I've got some epoxy mixed up that will lock it onto the shaft. Let's get it in the hole so that it'll pour down around the shaft, and then it should never come off, at least until I drop the fan again and break the whole thing. Before I can put the handle on, I've got to get rid of the little pieces that are sticking out that are left of the old handle, so I'm just going to unscrew those. I had to take the grill off and get on the inside to reach the screws. I figure while I've got it open again, I should try to get rid of that big dent that's in the top there. I think something fell on it at some point. A block of wood to use as a dolly and a hammer. I'm going to use that same block of wood to make the handle. I'm going to make it pretty much the length that the old one was. Just going to mark it, and then I can cut it out on the bandsaw. Just going to kind of freehand it here. Finish putting the screws in the grill, stand it up, and new handle, really convenient. Knob seems to work okay. Now it's to check it to make sure the fan still works, because that would be my luck. You go to the trouble of fixing something up, put extra effort into it, and then it stops working. So Still works. One last thing before I go, I've been doing a bit of an experiment here on rust protection for steel. I started with a piece of saw blade that I sanded all the rust off of. Then I left the right side raw, no protection. The middle has water-based polyurethane, just a ultra thin coat, wiped on and wiped off immediately, so it's so thin you can't even see it. And then on the left I used paste wax. I put on a coat, allowed it to dry to a haze, and then buffed it off. And as you can see, the center section here that was protected with the water-based polyurethane has not given up any rust at all, while the side over here that is protected with the wax is slowly rusting away. And of course the one on this side immediately started to rust. Now what I've been doing, and this is 7 days doing it, is I've been soaking this paper towel with water and then leaving it overnight until it dries, making sure that there's actually water pooling up on this, so that this is a really fair test, I can tell you. I did this more or less to confirm what I already knew. I did this protection on my table saw top 3 years ago now, and it's still holding up to this day. That original wiped on coat hasn't broken down. There's no rust showing on the saw at all. So if you're wondering what's the best protection for your table saw, I guess this answers it. Tip it to 10 degrees. There goes my camera again. And I'm going to make another cut.